As men, this is the age where we embody the idea of freedom, the backbone of our culture, and we begin to live that out in sovereign means. Better men, choosing to embody freedom and live as a sovereign man. This is the Better Man channel. How many times have you thought of better times, of greater ages of the past, and you thought, man, what if I could return to that state, that time in my life? What if society could return to the great ages where men were great? And it's easy to get caught up in that, and I understand and I sympathize with those ideals. I've said it myself. But what is misleading there is that you can never return to a specific point in the past. The past is over. The past is done with. The past cannot be replicated as much as sometimes we would desire it to be so. The past is said and done, and you cannot replicate it to its exact point. Therefore, we should never get caught up in a return to, but instead we should take the core of those great times, those great periods, and begin to mold those and take the great ideas of that and transform it into something bigger and better, because cultures and ideas of the past and of each age and of each generation are this organic and dynamic essence and spirit. They take on a life of their own. Any of us that have lived according to an idea or philosophy, it takes on a feeling of itself. It's almost something that can't be defined. It can be felt. Imagine freedom. The idea of freedom. You can define it. Freedom being the being able to act out on your own without any hindrances. You can say, think, and do without being stopped. That's freedom. It's easy to define, but until you can actually feel it and live it as a Western, as an American walking in freedom, we almost take an advantage to those that have never felt freedom. You feel the idea of your age. You feel the essence of the culture that you embody. So we can never return to that exact feeling, right? You can think about it and have a memory of it. Remember your first kiss, or remember the first touchdown, or the first great thing that happened in your life. You can remember it all you want, but it's the feeling that actually evokes those great memories. Evokes that idea of that age that you were in. And so instead of being focused on returning to something, returning to great men, returning to a great country, we should be focused on the progression of where we're going and what we're going to do to make ourselves great, to make our country great, to make our environment great, to make those around us great. And we live in a Western culture. I live in America where the whole idea throughout the whole of the generation has been freedom, right? We removed ourselves from England in the name of religious freedom. And then we get here and we start dealing with taxes from someone across the pond. And we're like, hey, we're our own individuals. We want freedom from that taxation. So we see the war and all that going to work for that. And then we get to a point where we want to expand more westward from the East Coast. So we want the freedom to expand. So we see man moving to conquer, expand, extend his sovereignty and his freedom. And then we get into the 1860s and the political background of then, which leads to slavery. And we want to see the freedom of slavery, because man, in essence, always wants to seek out that freedom. And freedom has been the idea of our age and the culture and the organic vibe of this state. And then we get into the 20s with economic growth, the roaring 20s. And then we get into the 50s and 60s with the American dream, where we see the freedom, the idea, the age of that generation, that everybody can make it and everybody can work and aspire and achieve great things. And then we get into 60s, where this idea of freedom is, let's be free from the man and the government and don't trust anyone over the age of 30. We see freedom evoked in that manner from man. And we get into the ages after that, the 70s, the 80s. We get into this Cold War environment where we want freedom from someone being able to push a button and destroy the whole world. And that's the idea of freedom. Are we free? Can our freedom be stolen from us at any moment? And then we get into the 90s and the early 2000s or the late 80s and 90s, and we're free to just be. There wasn't a lot going on. We're just free to live. Nothing bad, nothing good, just is. And then we get into the 2000s and where America is attacked on our own ground. And so this freedom of we're strong, we stand up, we're authoritative. Who's going to do this on our own ground? And we see this warlike freedom coming in. Can we stand up for what we believe in? Can we prove that we are who we are, this strong, free country? And then from there, we're pretty strong. We've exhibited our power. We've lived out this age of freedom. And we've got lazy. And so we see this entitled generation, this social justice warrior generation where there's nothing really bad going on. So from our very own nature, we want to exert freedom. So we start coming up with these ideas of freedom where we begin to call up, down, and left, right, and wrong, right, and good, bad, and bad, good. We've got lazy, and as man, our nature is to always be exerting the age, the idea, the very breadth of our culture, and that is one of freedom. So we see people without a cause. We see people without any true wisdom. We see people without any tradition clinging to the idea of freedom that our culture represents. So they start distorting it and twisting it into this, well, I'm free to choose my own identity. I'm free to say that good is now evil. We live in a culture where we've embodied this idea of freedom intellectually, but we're not putting it to use in any achievable and sustainable ways. We've got lazy. And so culture provides us with these ideals. Culture provides us with these ideas and the spirit of each generation. And the whole backbone of our culture is freedom. And throughout the ages, we've exhibited that in different manners. And we now live in an age, generation where things are beginning to get distorted. Freedom is being distorted. Power is being distorted. Ideas and philosophies are being distorted. And we see a lot of men, we see a generation that says, man, we need to return to the good old days. But like I said, we can never return to the past. We can take the good ideas of the past and what worked in the past and begin to mold those and transform and adapt and progress into our future. As men, this is the age where we embody the idea of freedom, the backbone of our culture, and we begin to live that out in sovereign means. Freedom means that no one can tell you what to do or hinder you from your freedom to act, think, or do as you will. Sovereignty is this absolute power, the supreme rule. Sovereignty is freedom lived out. This is going to be an age. This has the potential to be an age where we realize something wrong is going on here. We're beginning to lose the idea, the very core of what freedom means. So let's take the tradition of freedom. Let's stand up for what's right. Let's stand against what's wrong. And then let's begin to embody this sovereignty as individual men, strong in our freedom, standing for what is right, standing against what is wrong. This culture is backed and viable by the very idea of freedom. That's what makes America great, freedom. But what makes America greater and what makes this age have the possibility to be great is that we can truly embody freedom and begin to live that out as sovereign men, saying this is my freedom to stand up for what is right. The traditions, the values that have sustained this culture for so long and made us great. And I'm going to stand up for that. I'm no longer going to sit down and let people that distort freedom begin to manipulate themselves into power, because that forms chaos. And a country formed in chaos will not last. And so as culture breeds these ideas and these age of ideas, that means that they are born. That means that they mature and reach a maturation stage, and then eventually they're going to die. And so we're in an age right now where we see distortion, social justice warriors rising. And I believe it's reached its maturation age where we're beginning to realize that's ignorant. So the social justice warrior and the ignorance of the extreme left, those are going to die out. And we're going to see this born this new age of sovereignty, where man takes the greatness of the past, molds it into something that can sustain in today's age, and the ideals and the philosophies of this age will be men living sovereign, embodying the very idea of freedom. I love you guys. Live out your freedom by becoming sovereign. The idea of this age is to be sovereign. You guys will hear from me next episode.